Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen. Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to another episode of the Four Horsemen Old School Magic. I'm the Chadster. I'm here with John Eckleberry. How you doing, John?
I'm all good. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining me tonight. For our viewers, we are going to be covering the last and final episode of our Four Horsemen Pauper Singleton Summer Tournament. But before we get into the finals episode here, just a quick reminder: our Four Horsemen Old School Magic group does tournaments every 5 to 6 weeks, and we're doing a new fall tournament. It's our 9th tournament since we started last July, and this tournament will be running from October 13th through November 19th. The updated ban and restricted is as you see here. If you're interested, check out fourhorsemenmagic.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/4horsemenmtg. We also do a Thursday night meetup that's hosted by John and Peter Soltes. If you'd like to play some casual old school magic matches, we meet up Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we typically do it coordination through our Facebook group and through Whereby. So join us for camaraderie games and old school magic fun on Thursday nights. So John, let's talk a little bit about tournament number 8. You were a big part of this. What was the feedback from the group?
It was great. People want to play it again. In fact, I didn't think I wanted to do Pauper for sure, and we were kind of worried about just doing straight Pauper. And then we came up with this crazy idea of Singleton, and I thought that doing Pauper and Singleton might be too limiting, but it was really fun, and it turns out everybody wants to do it again. So we're going to do it again in December. So that is going to be a good time.
Cool. Yeah, I was also pleasantly surprised at a lot of the feedback. You had a big hand in the card pool. Now that you've seen the tournament end to end, what do you think of the overall card pool?
I like it. I initially had kind of thought maybe we should just stick to the original printing rarities to keep it kind of in the old school wheelhouse, but opening it up to the actual Pauper card pool, things that have been reprinted in later sets at a downshifted rarity, and also reprinted in online sets as a downshifted rarity. Gave us a little bit more opportunity to include some fun cards to play with that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to. You get some legends in there, you get some powerful artifacts that you wouldn't have had access to, and some better creature selection as well.
Yeah.
So I think that we ended up having, 255 commons?
Yep, that's right.
In the card pool, and that seemed to be a pretty good cross section. Black was a little underrepresented, but all the other colors saw some play, and we will even see some black played in a few of the top 8 matches. Mike Clements played some black cards, and Evil Eye seems pretty fun, and there's some other good ones. But red's really powerful, and blue's really powerful, so we'll get to see that tonight.
Yeah, and if we look at the kind of feedback from the group, I know we did a poll on the Four Horsemen Facebook page. Are you thinking we should do Singleton again, or should we go back to just Four Horsemen Pauper, which I think Timmy Talks did that like a couple years back, and a lot of folks played in that. What do you think we should actually do about the old round 2 of Pauper?
I originally had thought we should just go straight Pauper, and I don't know. The feedback seems to be that people want another crack at this.
At Singleton,
They
it's
want another
Singleton Pauper.
crack at the Singleton before we move on to that, and we can certainly do that down the road. But while everybody's got this on the brain and is still hungry for it and still brewing for it, I say we just go ahead and run it back and have some fun.
Well, we'll be doing that in December after we wrap up our tournament number 9, which is starting on Friday.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the finals. Here's a view of the brackets. We'll get into the match here in just a moment. We had a lot of sweeps in the quarterfinals and sweeps in the semifinals. So tonight we'll be covering the match of Peter Soltesz versus Luke Sherry. And just a quick overview snapshot. This is some of the key cards in Peter's deck on the left and Luke's deck on the right. And if we dig in here, let's take a look at Peter's red, blue, green aggro deck. John, what do you think overall about Peter's build?
I feel like Peter is playing all of the best cards available in this format for the most part. I just don't think there's any omissions. When we look at Luke's deck is also very good. But there are a couple cards that I would probably cut or switch, and he'll talk about that at the end of the video as well. But like here, it's pretty tight. There's not much in here that I would change.
Yeah. And a lot of these cards are some of the best of these colors. It is tricky to run 3 colors. Not everyone did run 3 colors. Many folks ran 2 colors, but we did see a lot of 3 color mixes. All the blue flyers, all the red damage, a lot of fast red creatures. A few, you've got things like gaseous form to deal with creatures. You've got flood, which is really, really probably the most powerful blue card, boomerang, things like that. And then there's a few good artifacts too. I think Peter played the least number of artifacts of anyone. He only played the Ocean Soldier, the Jalum Tome, the Fell War Stone, Clay Statue, and the Regenerating guy. That is Clay Statue.
Yeah. All of the offensive ones and none of the defensive ones, which was probably smart.
Clay, he played Clay Statue and Primal Clay. That's what I was thinking. Primal Clay down the left.
Yeah. Primal Clay, which always ends up being a 2/2 flyer in this format. Not always, but most of the time.
Yeah. So I agree. I think Peter's deck is really solid. And, Peter's been playing Four Horsemen, just like you, since our first tournament last July. So he's had a lot of time to familiarize himself with what's going on in the meta and what cards he's coming up against. And I think he did a good job studying the card pool and obviously picking the best of the best. Let's take a look at Luke Sherry's blue-red Atog aggro build. What do you think about Luke's build?
This has also got a lot of powerful cards in it. As I mentioned before, maybe there's a couple you could swap out. I think probably like the Felden's King could go. The Tortoise could probably go. He didn't prove to be that great for me either. He seems like he'd be a good early blocker, but he doesn't end up being very great. I don't love the Battering Ram, but I can see where he might be good in this deck. Both to maybe hit opposing walls, but also you can sack him to the Orcish Mechanics if you have to.
Yeah.
So a couple weak cards, but mostly this is all the best stuff. Like Mountain Yeti's a total house. Brothers of Fire is super good. The Desert Walkers are super good. I really love that he's got the super expensive for a common telekinesis in there. I think he was the only person that played one. Yeah. Probably the only person that had one on hand.
Yeah.
I don't know if he bought it just for this tournament or not. He might have. But that's a really cool card that I thought might win some games for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like his build overall. I like that he's streamlined and he went 2-color. He decided not to splash a 3rd color for consistency and just played the best cards in these 2 colors, except the biggest notable omission for me here is there's no Flood in this deck. And I feel like Flood would be awesome in this deck with his 13 islands.
Oh, yeah.
If you just dropped the Felden's Cane and made it a Flood, and then maybe just switch a couple other cards. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and it is interesting. Luke's going to do a little breakdown of what he'd like to change, and I'm sure he'll be joining us for the follow-up Pauper event in December. So let's get into the match.
Excellent.
Okay, let me cue it up here. All right. So we're starting off here. Luke's on the left, Peter's on the right. Luke rolls a 5 and Peter rolls a 4. So Luke's going to be on the play. So Luke's got an interesting playmat, very Halloweenish. Do you know anything about his playmat, John?
I am not sure what that is. Is it a newer Magic card or is it something else?
I think it's like a custom art. It's a custom art. I mean, it's got it's got like All Hallows Eve moon out. It's got a castle. It's got Atog running around down there. Okay, so Luke starts off, plays the Brass Man, a 1/3 for 1, and Peter drops a mountain. Peter's taking his time here, really thinking about what he wants to do, huh?
Yeah, I guess he's just kind of trying to... I mean, it amazes me that in this format his hand's good enough that he has multiple decisions, but apparently he's trying to figure out like what the most effective sequence is to get his stuff out there, and he's going to come out with Zephyr Falcon. Interestingly, Peter opted to play a lot of these little 1/1s that after a lot of testing, you and I kind of decided to pull because we felt like they were too easy to kill.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes really good use of them, chipping in with damage early.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He does well with them. He's playing most of the little flyers. He's got the Dragonfly and the Flying Men and the Zephyr Falcon.
Yeah. Well, and Luke gets in early with a couple of hits with the Brass Man, but he's got to pay 1 to untap him. And then now Peter, on turn 3, drops an Unstable Mutation, really powerful common enchantment on his Zephyr Falcon, making it a 4/4. And here Peter drops Telekinesis. I'm going to pause here, and let's take a look at Telekinesis, because this is a card that a lot of folks may not have seen recently. I know I had to go look.
If ever.
I had to look it up, and it's a instant from Legends. It costs 2 blue, and it taps a target creature, and then it prevents all combat damage that would be dealt by that creature this turn. And then that creature...
Ooh, it's come down in price a bit. That's good. Just like everything else in the market.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess you can get it very good for $26 on Card Kingdom, but not only does it tap the creature down and prevent any damage that they would be dealing in combat, but then that creature doesn't untap during its controller's next 2 untap phases. And I mean, what a powerful card for Luke to have here, because this this particular sequence here with the Zephyr Falcon, on the turn 3 at a 4/4, this is like a death sentence for Luke, and then he just drops a Telekinesis as an instant to basically neutralize that.
Well, and it's a great play because the card interaction, keeping it tapped for a few turns, that creature is going to eat itself with the Unstable Mutation.
Yeah.
which is really cool. And Telekinesis, you'll notice, is one of those cards that was a rare that was then downshifted to a common. So it's probably one of the more powerful cards you can play.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue with the match here.
To the depression of Peter dropping this card.
Yeah, a little bit of a prelude here. Peter's got a card in hand. He looks like he's ready to tap it. I watched this. So the Zephyr Falcon is tapped. Is that right? But they're still talking about it. They're still discussing it. Luke is reading the card. He's Peter's looking at his hand, figuring out what he's going to do. He's got a mountain and an island open. And here he goes. And so Peter plays the one card that like completely saves him, and that is Flash Counter. Flash Counter is an instant, and it targets an instant. It counters an instant for a blue and a colorless. I mean, when I was watching the match live, I was on mute and I was like yelling at the screen. I was like, no freaking way. How does he have the one of Singleton Flash Counter in his hand, which is basically the only card that can save him here. And Peter's got it, and so it's just a crazy play, and that Telekinesis gets countered, and now Peter just comes bombing in with the 4/4 Flying Zephyr. Rough.
Yeah, it's bad news. That's a lot of damage. So let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like 10 damage if he doesn't have another answer for it that he could have prevented, that he's just going to take to the chin now.
Right, and that's on turn 3 too. It's so huge.
Why is the Zephyr Falcon tapped though?
Oh, because he attacked with it. Yeah, it shouldn't be tapped. It has vigilance. It doesn't tap when it attacks. But
yeah, it has vigilance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so Luke kind of comes back with a salvation maneuver. He gets his 4th land and plays Azure Drake, which is 2/4 flyer. The Zephyr Falcon gets a counter on it, so he goes from 4/4 to 3/4. So now Luke is kind of saved by getting this 4th turn Azure Drake out as a blocker. Really, really timely maneuver. All right, so Peter drops a forest. Now he's got all 3 colors. And he just attacks right into the Drake anyway. So he's got the Chain Lightning. Dang.
Just got all the answers.
Yeah.
And I feel like playing Peter lately, this is every game that I play against him too. Like, he just always has the perfect card at the perfect time to totally blow me out. And I razzed him for playing that Flash Counter when we first were brewing decks for this format. And then he blew me out one game countering my Fissure with it at a key moment that allowed him to just run me over. And we saw it again here. It's really hard to recover.
Yeah.
It's just really going to be tough for Luke to get back into it after having both the Telekinesis and the Drake taken care of. That's pretty rough.
Yeah. And then not only does he get rid of the Drake with the Chain Lightning, that was Luke's saving grace there. Then he also drops another creature, the Ocean Soldier, for 3. A 1/4 that also doesn't tap. So he's got vigilance on both his creatures. So he's got offense and defense. Meanwhile, what is this that Luke drops? That's the Onulet. Is that what that is?
Yeah, Luke was pretty high on that card when we were talking about it, when we were deck building. But I just think it's pretty just okay-ish. It's a 2/2 for 3. You do gain 2 life when it dies, but I don't love it. I don't even think it's worth an include for a slot. I mean, maybe slightly better with the Orcish mechanics, but I don't love it.
Yeah. Well, it could be fuel for the Orcish mechanics or for the Atog is maybe what he was thinking.
Oh, yeah. He's also playing Atog, so, keeping the artifact count up is probably the right way to go. And it is a body.
Yeah.
It can be a threat, but
But
I
Atog,
don't know.
Atog being a one of, I mean, you could get a bunch of artifacts and never even draw your Atog. So,
That's true.
all right. So Peter has dropped a land every single turn. He's had answers every turn, and Peter's at 18. Luke's at 16. He gets in for, I think the Zephyr's down to a 3 now. Oh, and now Peter drops an Azure Drake of his own. He's just got it all the goodies. Oh, but Luke has removed soul.
Well,
Wow.
that's something. Like, I like to see that at least little bit of elasticity here, where Luke gets to have a play like that.
Right. Where it's not
Seeing
completely
the Azure
one-sided.
Drake killed on both sides without doing any damage is pretty crazy, because that sometimes is a win condition in this format.
Right.
Oh, he drops the desert. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are, of course, playing desert because it's great, but there are so many of the Desert Walker guy getting played that almost sometimes you might want to hold it just to not have to run into that.
Yeah.
He's pretty safe to play right now, though, it seems. You know, maybe he can kill the Falcon on its last way over. It's a little bit too late, but
Yeah. Well,
saving 1 point of damage is still saving 1 point of damage.
yeah, and there's not a ton of land destruction. I mean, like Fisher's one thing you got to worry about, but I think he's pretty safe to play it. The problem is it's just not doing him much good. I guess he could, if he were to block, he could save his Brassman and his Amulet and do a combo block and then use the desert and maybe hold off the Ocean Soldier, but he's still taking it on the chin every turn from the Zephyr Falcon. It's interesting.
Yeah.
He's attacking. He's continuing to put the pressure on Peter, even still. And
I mean, I think he just feels like he has to.
yeah.
Also, he was kind of hoping that he'd block, I guess, with the Ocean Soldier, and maybe he could finish it off. With
And I think that's exactly what happens. I think Peter blocks here, so he's getting in for 1 damage, or two damage depending on which one he blocked, and then he can finish him off with the pyrotechnics. I'm kind of surprised he did that. You know, I would have maybe considered just. I mean, I know the Zephyr Falcon is going to go away, but maybe if he just held back his defense here and took out the Zephyr Falcon, he could have done, I think, 2 or 3 to the Zephyr Falcon and gotten rid of it and done 1 to Luke, something like that, and just kept his guys back for defense. He could have gotten rid of that flyer and maybe held off. Switching.
Yeah, well, I don't know when he drew the pyrotechnics. I'm not sure if he had it in his hand before. And also, he knows the Falcon's just going to die from the unstable mutation anyway. So
well, yeah, but it's still got another couple of. It's got another couple of turns of attacks. It's going to have at least this turn.
I think it's got 1 left, right? Is this the last turn that can?
Yeah, it's going to have. It'll still live, but it'll have this turn to attack. I think. No, it's a 1/1, right? So it'll die next turn.
It's a 1/1, so it'll die next turn.
Okay, so he takes it and then he deserts him. Okay, so that's why he didn't use the pyrotechnics, because he knew he could just get rid of it with the desert. Oh, and there is the dreaded Mountain Yeti.
Just one hit after another. Like, that's another card in this format that can just run totally unchecked and like win a whole game. I mean, if he doesn't have draw removal for that in the next 3 turns, he's basically done.
Yeah, because it's a 3/3 Mountain Walker, and it's got
or 4 turns, I guess. He's got 13 left.
Yeah, it's got protection from white. Not that there's anything crazy white that can, threaten it, but just a 3/3 Mountain Walk unto itself is since almost everyone's playing red, is just like killer.
We opted to not play with sideboards in this format, which I'm happy about. I like having to make the tough choices if you want to include like Hoser cards or not. But honestly, red and blue are both so good that I think both of these guys should be running both Active Volcano and Flash Flood. I don't know if they're both running both of them, but I think both cards are worth an include.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Flash Flood and Active Volcano, if you're playing red-blue, you gotta run those. It's just a one mana cost spell that gets rid of any red or blue threat for each one corresponding, and it's just really good as a common. I mean, that's
Flash Flood in particular is super good because there's a lot of legends that have red in their casting cost, so it takes care of them. It also, if your opponent's not playing red at all, you can use it to crack your own Rook Egg.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not totally useless. And Active Volcano is great because it gets rid of Drake. It gets rid of Ghost Ship, I guess, if they don't have mana to regenerate. Also gets rid of a few legends. It's pretty good. I guess Flash Flood's the better of the two, but I think they're both pretty clutch in this format. Oh, Scavenger Folk's pretty good. I mean, I don't think he'll waste it on either of those artifacts guys, but maybe.
Well, they're not. Neither of them are really much of a threat, but he's still coming in, even with the Mountain Yeti. Yeah, because he's got no real choice but to continue to attack. He can't do anything about the Yeti unless he gets a.
I mean, it's pretty close. It's 7-9. Like, it's not like he's totally out of it. Given the hand that he was dealt, I feel like he's doing the best he can.
Yeah, I think he's doing really well. If Peter didn't have that flash counter, I think Lucas would be way ahead right now. And Lucas's continued attacks to put the pressure is what's kept the life counts so similar. But Peter's got 3 guaranteed damage per turn, so Luke is on a 3-turn clock here.
Yeah, 2 now. He's down to 4. So Luke's got 3 cards left, it looks like, in his hand, and I'm not sure exactly which. Well, there's the Bloodlust. That's game if he can't do anything.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's 7 damage right there. Wow, what a surprise attack. Just boom, in with the Bloodlust, game over. Man.
And like, he had more gas behind it too. He had the primal play that he could have made another flyer and been chipping in for flying damage. Like, he was pretty unstoppable this game. He had all the answers and all the good threats.
Yeah, he really did. Man, I was rooting for Luke so much when I was watching this game live. Peter's been crushing it, not only in the Four Horsemen format, but in other old school formats. So, quite frankly, we'd like to see somebody else win a few of these tournaments. And Luke's a great player.
Peter's just been on fire. He's really, he's one of these guys that he didn't play for like 20 years. And then he came back to the game with us, playing Four Horsemen. I don't know how he found us, but like, this was the first thing that brought him back. And now he's branched out to some other formats. In fact, Luke Sherry has his own format, 1993 Singleton.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter and I both play that, and we both faced off in the finals this past month, and Peter crushed me in that too. I definitely think he had a better deck than I did. I definitely had some deck building restrictions that I had put on myself for the month, but I still liked my deck, and it had a lot of game. But Peter just seemed to have my number.
Yeah.
And you can see that video too, because we recorded that. So you can check that out on the channel. Check out 93 Singleton. It's a fun format.
Yeah, we did a video of that game. It was really great. All right, so the guys are shuffling up here. Let me speed this up a little bit so we can get to game number 2. Wow, they're doing a lot of shuffling. I've got this at 4x right now. Okay, there we go. So I guess Luke's going to take the play. I haven't really seen anybody take the draw when they have the option.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is. I would like to say this is kind of a slow format, but I don't know. I mean, we saw both these guys come out pretty aggressive with 1 and 2 drops, and they both like did pretty well hitting cards on curve.
Yeah, I mean Peter's entire deck is 1, 2, and 3 drops. Yeah, Peter's the whole deck is 1, 2, and 3 drops, but except for a few of the blue flyers and stuff. Luke is taking a mulligan here. That's right. So Luke takes a mulligan. So man, more bad luck for Luke here. He's got a mulligan this hand. Oh, so here I made the comment that he's running sleeveless, and he's like, yeah, it's so great to play a 60-card sleeveless deck because it's so thin, and then he pulls his Fallen Empire's 40-card deck, and it's, really tiny. So he's showing the thickness on the deck stacks with no sleeves.
Yeah. I sent Luke a handful of cards that when he was brewing, because I have a bulk box here, and I'm like, don't pay money for this junk. I'll just throw it in the mail for you.
Yeah, you did the same for me, and I appreciate
it. He's like, I want blackboard cards if you have them. And I was razzing him. I was like, I would have sent you a whiteboard Brothers of Fire if I knew you were going to not play sleeves with it. But, I mean, it's a 10-cent card, so, who cares? But
yeah,
it's pretty fun.
No,
fun. I've got, a million whiteboard Brothers of Fire here, but I sent him a blackboard.
That's cool. Wow, well, so Luke starts off slow. He drops a mountain and passes, and then Peter, here he is, lighting it up again.
Mountain Walker, turn 1.
Yeah, turn 1, Goblins of the Fog, Mountain Walker, and Luke's got his mountains out there, so he's already looking like he's he had to take the mulligan. I'm sure he probably thought, I think if I remember correctly, he thought about taking a second mulligan, so his mulliganed hand wasn't even that great on his second draw. And Peter's really thinking about what to do here with his 1 land. This music reminds me of Raiders of the Lost Ark in the scene where they're opening up the Ark and it lightning bolts everybody. Okay, so first he drops a forest, then he takes it back, and now he drops an island. And he plays Flood. Wow. Most powerful blue card, I think, in the whole format. Attacks for 1.
When we were testing, I really honestly think that it might be the best card in the whole format. It really, I had games where I would just lock up people's whole board, because I also was only playing 2 colors in our test phase. I was playing blue-white, because you had thought that green-red would be just unbeatable, so I wanted to try to play the opposite, and Flood was awesome.
Well, and it turns out, green-red with blue was the winning deck.
What was it? You weren't wrong.
I wasn't entirely right. I knew green-red was going to be really, really tough, but it was splashing the blue for these powerful blue cards that makes all the difference. And, Peter hits all 3 of his lands here. He's just hitting everything perfectly. It's just like, how is this possible? He gets a first turn Goblin, second turn Flood, and now he's got his third turn Pradesh Gypsies. And Luke over here poor Luke is just churning on 3 mountains. He's got no creatures, and he plays a third turn Jaloom Tome. I mean, that could possibly help him, but he has to discard and use 3 mana for each time he activates it, or 2 mana, excuse me. So he's going to draw off the Jaloom Tome here.
That's one of those cards that would not be in the format if we only used original rarity, but it's kind of it's a clutch card that belongs in every deck.
The Pradesh Gypsies?
No, the tome.
Oh, the Jalum tome. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives some real game to decks that are behind. There's not a lot of ways to come back from behind in this format, I don't feel like, but that's one of them. You can start pitching your junk lands and get something useful.
Right. Yeah, once you've got your mana out, you can ditch your lands and other cards. And, for only 2 mana to activate it, it can be activated pretty cheaply. So he
Look at Peter's board, though. Like, Luke is just, trying to dig for something. And Peter's just like, oh, yeah, I got a flyer and 2 mountain walkers and a dude that'll negate anything that you do.
Yeah, he gets the Mountain Yeti again on turn 4 here. And he drops the Fire Drake on his 3rd turn, which is a 1/2 flyer that he can pump. So yeah, I mean, he's just killing it. He's just getting everything right. He's got all the mana right. He hits his 4th land. He's got all 3 colors. Luke only hits his 2nd color here on the 5th turn. He finally gets a blue. And he plays a Mountain Yeti of his own. That won't stop the other Mountain Yeti, but at least it can stop some of the ground creatures. Yeah, Luke is just on fire. He's just hitting everything. Oh, there's the Chain Lightning. So there goes his Mountain Yeti.
That hurts.
And if only Luke had the 2 mountains to return it, he could have bounced it back. But of course, he didn't. Oh, that's so tough.
It's just so rough.
Yeah, I hate to watch it because I mean I've seen Luke play some just amazing games and he's such a good player, and I feel for him here.
Well, and sometimes it's just your luck, I mean, just like Peter's been on fire, Luke has had so many tournaments lately where he makes it to the finals, and then just doesn't get there, and it just he is due a win. Like in one of these formats, he's such a good player, and he brews some really great decks, and it's rough. Peter's, obviously gonna get him here, and I beat Luke when we played in the must have been Fallen Empires 40 that Luke and I played last. He was also in my pod for his 93 Singleton this last month. So Luke and I get to play quite often. I really enjoy playing with him.
Yeah, really nice guy. And the most he can come up with is he discards an Artifact Blast from his Jalum tome drawing and drops a Mountain Walking Goblins of the Flarg. But Peter's got his own goblins and his own Mountain Walking Yeti and a flyer, so it's just, it's like 1-2, it's 5 damage with no pump, 6 damage with the pump, and Luke is at 6. He had a boomerang in hand, but he's only got 1 island, so he can't even use the boomerang, and it's game over.
Oh.
Yeah, rough. So rough.
So I guess this is probably a decent time to talk about how one-sided the top 8 games were.
Yeah. Yeah, let me...
every single one of them was a 2-0.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And let me switch back to the slides so we can toggle through that. Yeah, so if we look at the brackets from quarterfinals on, now in Peter's in Peter and Benjamin's game, Benjamin ended up going on family vacation because folks took, we gave people a lot of time to finish their matches, and nobody did any of their matches until the last week. It was really frustrating, and by that time Benjamin, who thought he would have been able to get his matches in, ended up being on holiday with his family. So Peter actually got a bye for this quarter finals match here. We had an issue with Mark that most people know about, and Mark was disqualified. Luke beat you 2-0. We
He
recorded.
absolutely destroyed me.
Yeah.
Played too.
Did we? But that match we were missing the video for. Like you thought you recorded it, but you didn't, right?
Yeah, so him and I played 93 Singleton and played Four Horsemen that night, and I thought I recorded both of them, but when I stopped it in the middle to start the next one, I just must not have started it. But you know what? I think I played 4 cards in 2 matches. It was a total blowout. It was a bloodbath. It was terrible.
Well, it would have been nice to see Luke, win, but we were missing that video. And then Jeff.
That's true. It would have been nice to see his deck come out strong, because it did.
Yeah.
It came out like Peters did this couple of games. Luke's deck came out really strong against me.
So I think, and in Jeff versus Daniel, Jeff's deck was very strong, and I honestly thought Jeff might have a shot at beating Luke, but Luke swept Jeff 2-0, and we have covered that match in our prior videos if you want to check that one out. But part of this 2-0 sweeping trend, I think number one is related to the strengths of the decks that made it. We only had 11 people in this Pauper Singleton tournament, so even though it was popular amongst the people who did play, 11 players is pretty low. Usually we have around 20 to 24 players. So, but it was also summer, and a lot of people were away. We've got 21 players signed up for tournament number 9 starting Friday. So, I'm curious about your thoughts. I think part of it is the random luck of the draw with Singleton, like what we saw here with Luke, and part of it is that we had a small pool of players.
Yeah, it's both for sure. Certainly with the small pool of players we had, we probably should have just cut to top 4, and we would have done away with those early sweeps. But even then, you see that in the semifinals and finals, they were all 2-0 games. And it's funny because you would think, like you said, with a little more variance with Singleton, you'd think you'd see more 2-1s, somebody just randomly pulling a game out. But it didn't seem to be the case, even with people with strong decks. Because, like you said, Jeff's deck was really good. And I was really excited to watch Jeff and Luke's match. I actually think that was the most exciting match, potentially, in the tournament. And it just, it went the same way that the others did. Just one person ran the other over.
Let me see if I can grab the slide real quick that had the points. Yeah, here it is. Let me just copy this and drop it in here, and we can take a look.
So, like, we had, we had 3 pods, right? And so we really should have just taken the winner of each pod and then 1 wild card, and that would have been our top 4. And that would have been, I guess that would have knocked out one of the 6-point players, so maybe that would have been a feels bad.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly as a person that, did a lot of testing and then played something different at the last minute and only won one match, like I didn't have any business playing in the top 8 anyway.
Yeah,
I was glad that Luke ran me over as easily as he did.
John, can you see these point groupings summary here?
Yep.
So
I can see them.
Peter, Luke, Mark, Jeff, Mike, those were the top 5. If we move Mark out because of his issue that got him disqualified.
The top 4 would have been Peter, Luke, Jeff, and Mike.
And Mike, right? Those would have been the top 4. Yeah, so I think it'll, when we go to the next tournament, we'll have to see how many people we get that sign up. And so this is what the final brackets end up looking like. And Pete wins his, I believe this is his 3rd or 4th championship win. And congratulations to Peter, and also to Luke for coming in 2nd. That's a real accomplishment. Luke's not made it this far in a Four Horsemen tournament before, so it was really great to see him get all the way to 2nd, and we commend him for that. And congrats to Peter on his blue green red aggro deck with all the best cards.
Most definitely.
All right, John. Well, this has been a great match, and thanks for joining me tonight. Just a quick reminder for the viewers, if anybody wants to play some old school magic, we'd love to have you in the Four Horsemen Old School Magic group. Our next tournament starts October 13th, and we run it for 5 weeks through the 19th. And proxies and reprints are allowed, so you can print out your cards, you can make proxies, you can draw proxies, whatever you need to do. And we'd love to have you. fourhorsemenmagic.com, facebook.com/groups/4horsemenmtg. With that, I think we will sign off for the evening. I'm the Chadster, and thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen.